everybody! So we are here to talk about the fourth Harry Potter movie. We're talking about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And I have my three accomplices with me, my three fellow muggles. I have Jeremy, Abby, and Richard. You guys want to introduce yourself? You can start with Abby.
Hi, Abby here.
Hi, I'm Jeremy.
I'm Richard, the British one.
Yeah. All right. So this is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. I will be looking at the comment section as best as I can, trying to coordinate everything. If you have comments, put them on the YouTube page if you're watching, and let's go ahead and get started. So I do my little summary, as I usually do, and so here we go. So in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, we learn that Lord Voldemort is back and beginning to make havoc at the Quidditch World Cup. Harry is there with the Weasleys, and he has a dream, and his scar hurts, which worries him. When he arrives at Hogwarts, Dumbledore announces there will be a Triwizard Tournament, where 3 magical schools from around the world will face off. There's also a new instructor called Mad-Eye Moody. There are to be 3 representatives in the tournament, 1 from each school, but a 4th name appears, and it is Harry Potter. This makes Ron very jealous, as he thinks Harry is stealing all the limelight and attention unnecessarily. The tournament starts with an egg guarded by a dragon. There is also a Yule Ball where Hermione looks very beautiful and attends with tournament competitor Victor Crumb. In the second competition, they face mermaids and must rescue their friends. Harry rescues competitor Fleur de Licour's sister and gets second place despite finishing last. Barty Crouch Sr. is surprisingly found dead by Harry, and Harry learns in the Pensieve that Dumbledore defended Snape against being a Death Eater, and that Barty Crouch Jr. was accused and sent to Azkaban. The last task is a maze. Both Cedric Diggory and Harry grab the Triwizard Cup at the same time, which takes them to a port key where Harry must face off against Voldemort, who kills Cedric. Harry and Voldemort face off, but he is able to escape with Cedric's body. Harry tells Dumbledore Voldemort has returned, and then it is uncovered that Mad-Eye Moody has been an imposter and is really Barty Crouch Jr. drinking Polyjuice Potion. The film ends with Dumbledore explaining to the students what has happened to Cedric, and Dumbledore reminding Harry that he is not alone. So, do you think I catch most everything? It
is a pretty long story.
Yeah. So I tried. So what were your guys' overall sort of thoughts on the rewatch of the film? I'll start with you, Richard. What do you think?
Well, my main impression is that it's quite a choppy film. It doesn't really run very smoothly. There's just so much from the book that is cut out. That there's like a couple of subplots that don't go anywhere in the film, like with Rita Skeeter and Hagrid and Madame Maxime, and it just often feels a bit all over the place, like when the foreign students suddenly turn up at the beginning of the year with no explanation before Dumbledore says the Triwizard Tournament is going on. And also, kind of feel it doesn't have quite the same. It doesn't have its own distinctive style, the way like the first 2 films and Prisoner of Azkaban did. But aside from that, it's certainly not a boring film. There's just so much packed in there, and the whole mystery I think is handled pretty well, quite cohesively, and the acting is pretty good as well.
What about you, Abby?
I agree. It's a little bit choppy. As a film on its own, it's kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't all fit together. Like the Yule Ball, I was kind of like, why? Why is there a Yule Ball in this movie? Like, it was more an integral part of the book, but in the movie it was just kind of like thrown in for drama. And, I don't know. I liked it overall. I mean, it's a fun movie to watch. It's exciting. I was tired last night, and I stayed awake through all of it. So that's something. But, yeah, lots of adventure. But every single one of the kids annoys me in this movie. They're just obnoxious, and it's partly because they're like 14, and 14-year-olds are the absolute worst. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
my impression.
Yeah, I'll agree with Richard. I felt like it was choppy. I really feel like once you get to about this point in the series, a few of the films feel more like a visual aid for the book rather than telling the story themselves, and this one's a pretty good example of that. Where I think you need to have read the book to understand what's really going on, but they did a really great job with the special effects and making what was there look really good. It was an enjoyable movie, though. I definitely recommend having read the book or reading the book to go along with it, though.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I feel like I don't know, like I've been kind of disappointed by these Harry Potter movies on the rewatch. If I'm honest, I mean the third one is really good, but I don't know. When I first watched them, they had such magic for me, and now on a rewatch, I'm just kind of like they're fine. I'm just not as excited as I thought I would be about them. I agree that it did feel kind of choppy to me, and just even things like the music, I was just kind of like, wasn't that good.
No, it's not quite memorable, is it, the music?
No, it's really not. And so, yeah, I had some more issues with some of the plot holes and some of the things than in this one than in any other, I think. So we'll talk about all that. But it's certainly not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination, and it's it's fine, it's entertaining enough. It's just not as good as I remembered, and so I guess that's my flaw, is I just remembered these films with sort of rosy glasses, I guess. So let's talk, Richard, about some of what do you say are some of the big main changes from the book? Because I know we could spend a whole podcast just talking about the changes from the book, but what are some of the big ones?
Well, some of the big ones is what gets left out. I mean, for starters, there are no house elves in this book. I mean, in the book we see Winky, Mr. Crouch's house elf, and Hermione starting this whole campaign for house elf rights.
Oh,
and
yeah.
none of that is in the film. And then there's the character of Ludo Bagman, who is the head of the Department of Magical Games and Sports, and he comes to Hogwarts for the Triwizard Tournament, and he's not in the film at all. I mean, the Dursleys get cut, and what else is there? Yeah, like I said, there's the plots with like Rita Skeeter writing all these stories about everybody and being an illegal animagus isn't in there, and there's not really any resolution to the romance that's going on between Hagrid and Madame Maxime. I mean, and also because there's no Dobby in this film, then it's actually Neville who gives Harry the gillyweed instead of Dobby, which is actually how Crouch Jr. originally planned it in the book. That's what he meant for it to happen, but Harry never asked Neville about it.
I'm kind of glad they got rid of the Dursleys. That's one change. I don't need to see them again. I'm glad they just kind of went right into it.
Yeah.
Personally.
And they don't bother with all the stuff about Crouch Senior either. Like in the film, Harry just randomly finds him dead, but in the book, there's a bit of mystery about him because he's been hiding around his house for a while and nobody's seen him, and then he turns up this gibbering wreck very suddenly at Hogwarts and then just disappears. And it's until later we find out Crouch Jr. killed him. And it's never explained exactly how and when Crouch Jr. escaped from Azkaban either, and in the book he's taken out of the equation because he gets a Dementor's kiss, but that never happens in the film. So if you haven't read the book, you might be thinking, how come we don't see him later on? Shouldn't he be with Voldemort?
That's true. I didn't think of that. You're right. Okay.
And I'll add as well. I don't think in the book that we had any hint of Barty Crouch Jr. Being Mad Eye until it was revealed. But in the film, they do drop hints throughout to kind of lead you to that conclusion before the characters realize it.
There are more hints in the film, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and just the whole design of Junior, that I don't know, and there's no reason. It's kind of like I don't know. It's just one of those characters where they introduce them, and that there's got to be a reason. So there's going to be there's going to be a reveal around that character coming up. Otherwise, why even have them in there?
Right.
Okay. But yeah, I forgot about the elves' rights because I do like that in the book. Okay, so here we go. We see Voldemort for the first time in this film. What do you think of his design? How he looks? How do you like Ralph Fiennes' performance? And does it make sense given the lore that we know so far that he is back? So what about you, Richard? What do you think about Voldemort in this?
Well, I like Voldemort very much. I mean, Ray Fiennes is so good at it that when I'm looking at him, both the way he's acting and how he looks, I'm not thinking of Ray Fiennes. I am thinking that's Voldemort, and he looks pretty much how I did in the book, except there are some minor differences. I think in the book his eyes are red, and he has these slit-shaped pupils, and I think Harry described his hands as looking like spiders because his fingers are so slim. But he does look pretty right, and he acts pretty the same way as well. This quite evil and mostly being a bit above it all, but also getting quite aggressive and worked up sometimes. And when you say about the law, where it makes sense that he's back, what exactly do you mean by that?
What I mean is, have they built up that that there's, I don't know, enough sort of evil, enough sort of things going on to justify that he is now back in the story?
Well, basically there is some more setup in the book. It is a bit abrupt about him suddenly coming back in the film. It is giving some more explanation about where he's been hiding, and how Wormtail brings him back to a physical form. Then in the film, it is quite an abrupt thing.
You know, that one's kind of weird because as people who've read the book, we can't really watch these movies from the perspective of people who haven't read the book.
No.
So I think you're right. I think the book really gives us what we need, and since we've all read it, it's kind of there. But I agree. If you just watch the movies, it probably would be a little bit more like, oh, he's already back? That's kind of weird. But I did feel like the visual portrayal of him was really well done. And the actor who played him did a good job.
Okay, so you did or you didn't?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I felt like that was well done. In fact, there were a lot of things about the movie that I felt like were kind of hokey. But that wasn't one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it just, if you haven't read the books, I think that it can just feel a little random. Like, why this moment, this time? Like, what has happened to make him be back now?
It was just that Wormtail escaped and had nowhere else to go but to go back to Voldemort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in the book, though, that's somewhat of a mystery. Like, why now? Why has he been taking the form of these other creatures until now? And then we don't find that out until, like, I don't remember if it's Order of the Phoenix or one of the later ones, but we do eventually figure out, like, oh, there's these Horcruxes, and this is what all went down in that creepy grave.
Yeah, it's in Half-Blood Prince, that sixth one.
Okay, yeah.
What do you think, Jeremy, of Voldemort?
I agree. I feel like he is made up to look the part. He's kind of off-putting, and he's supposed to be. I mean, he's basically siphoned off his soul until he becomes a little more serpent than man, I would say, and it's meant to be kind of off-putting. But again, I agree. When I saw him the first time, I was expecting the red eyes with the slits, and I think that's kind of one thing that between him and Harry Potter, they could just kind of ignore the eyes in the films, what they were supposed to be. So it's something you want to focus on, and that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he looked great. He's menacing. He's evil. He looks great.
Yeah, he's a little weird looking for me, to be honest, but I guess it works. I guess that's what they need for the character. Just the whole, like, pig nose.
It is creepy.
It's sort of weird to me, but it works. Okay, so, and I think Ray Fiennes is really good. He's always good. So, How do the events of the Quidditch World Cup create tone and tension for the rest of the film? Does it start too abruptly for you? Because we go pretty much right into it, except for that dreams portion. I don't know. What do you think, Abby, about the Quidditch World Cup?
I think it did. The beginning of the movie felt. I mean, maybe the whole movie felt rushed. Especially the beginning felt really rushed. We rushed right into the Quidditch World Cup. And we're seeing all these Quidditch games, and like in the book, I don't actually remember the Quidditch World Cup being that much of scenes where you're actually watching Quidditch. Like, it's more about the experience for Harry, like going to the weird tents and seeing all these people. It's like his first foray into the like real adult wizarding world. And that's the important thing about it. And in the movie, it kind of is more about the actual Quidditch.
Yeah.
But I think it was needed as far as including it, because it shows, for one thing, it shows that this whole Voldemort thing isn't just like all in Harry's head or all in Dumbledore's head or all just being talked about within the walls of Hogwarts. This is like, out in the wizarding world, this is a huge issue. And it's taken very seriously. And then we get the Death Eaters with the Dark Mark, which I didn't like the visual representation of in this. I felt like that was a little hokey. But
The Death Eaters or the Dark Mark?
Really, huh?
Are you talking about the Death Eaters or the Dark Mark itself?
The Dark Mark itself, I felt like, looked really silly, and just the whole way that they portrayed it. The first time I saw it, I was like, huh? This isn't really how it went down in the book, and this is not how I pictured it. And I still feel like, I don't even remember what I pictured when I read the book. It's been a long time. But even this time, I still felt like, this is kind of cheesy. Like, the Dark Mark looks a little goofy, and I didn't love it visually. But it does set the tone of, like, fear and concern and, like, things have gone to another level with the whole Voldemort is coming back situation.
Yeah. What about you, Richard?
Well, I do agree that it does start quite abruptly, but it's hard to see how else it could start, because in the book you get these stuff with the Dursleys first, and that's not really necessary. And ultimately, you need the Quidditch World Cup to establish both the existence of Porky's, because of the Triwizard Cup later on, and also Victor Crumb. Otherwise, it's going to feel quite awkward when you put it in later. And I feel it does work quite well in showing both like this more humorous tone that you get later in the film, and also and then switching back to the darkness as well when the Death Eaters turn up. It is a little bit confusing as to the fact that the Death Eaters have apparently been summoned to give this demonstration. I mean, I think Voldemort says in that dream sequence, "Find our followers and give them a sign," whereas in the book they were like, they just had a few drinks and were just having some fun. And it seems a bit confusing if it was a deliberate act that Voldemort had organised, because you think that people would make a bigger deal of it later on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I felt like they did a good job of establishing a feeling of chaos, and that is something that is, really, really scary when there's just that sense of like group chaos. But yeah, I'd agree. It definitely, in saying that, it still feels rushed, because they're not necessarily the same thing. Like, you can establish chaos and not have the story feeling rushed. But I thought it was okay, and I was kind of glad that they just went right into the thick of things instead of having the Dursleys and all that, personally. So, why do you think that Voldemort and his... why do you think that he has followers? What is it about him that has appeal to people like Lucius Malfoy or somebody like that? Why do you think that people want to follow him? What do you think, Jeremy?
People are attracted to power, and you know, he's you also get the people who will go good or evil on that. You know, people are attracted to good power. You know, I won't speak to Cornelius Fudge's character, but he rose to office and did so because of power. But he most of the time is seeking the good of the people, if not just himself. But people are drawn to Voldemort because of the power that's around him. They can exert their power and, in some degree, some of his power over others. And others are drawn to him because of fear, like Wormtail. And so you've got maybe a couple of different motivations that lead you there, but people like to be around power and either feel a part of it or protected by it.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of the fear.
Isn't this basically like a pure wizard supremacist group?
Yeah, he is. He is basically a wizarding Nazi. He believes that purebloods are superior and Muggleborns and Muggles themselves should be in the dirt, and that's basically the message that he's spreading. And a lot of people like Lucius Malfoy are attracted to that. They feel it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So I think that's. I mean, what was the appeal of Hitler? Like, he said he was going to make. I mean, if you're one of these wizards that thinks pure blood wizards are all there is, then of course you're going to follow Voldemort because he's going to cleanse the wizarding world. That's like his whole aim. But they don't necessarily see that he's also going to kill everyone else because he's just a big fat jerk.
And he's a mudblood too.
Yeah, I know, which is hilarious.
Well, in the world of Harry Potter, if somebody like Hermione, who now is a witch in training and everything, if she has a child with a wizard, is her child still a Muggle?
It's called a half-blood, because that's exactly what Harry himself is. His mother was a Muggle-born witch, and his father was a pure-blooded wizard.
Okay. All right, some of these dynamics get a little fuzzy for me. Okay, yeah, I think that I like the various things that you're talking about as far as Voldemort's appeal, because the power and also the fear. Like, I like that point. That was really good. That and also that he must be something kind of tantalizing about him. It must be something. Usually, these kind of people have a certain degree of charisma about them that makes you want to feel good when you're with them. They make you feel, So
well,
I don't know. It's interesting.
Later on, when we get our flashbacks of Tom Riddle, that's a lot more understandable because he was a very charming wizard. He was an attractive, charming kid, and I do agree. It's harder to understand. Like, he's this creepy looking creature now who's not even really all the way human. Why would I want to be anywhere near him? But I think it goes back. I mean, these aren't people who just started following Voldemort. These are people who have been following Voldemort for a very long time and knew him before he was a creepy snake-like ick monster.
The other question that I had, yeah, that's very true. The other question I had is, so is this just the Dark Lord for Britain, or is he like the Dark Lord for everyone in the Harry Potter world? Because we'll talk about it a little bit later, but so like in America, is like Voldemort the evil one? Like, is this like the devil in the Harry Potter world, or are there multiple Voldemorts all around the world?
Well, the only
I see him more as a Hitler-esque kind of character.
So just unique to that one area.
Yes, but the whole world is concerned about him. I feel like he builds up enough power. Again, like Hitler, where would he have stopped? He really wouldn't have. I mean, he would have continued to conquer and try to conquer the whole world eventually, I believe. And so I see Voldemort that way. Yes, he's going to start with his area. He's going to start with Britain. and once that's conquered, he would branch out and work on gaining more control and more power. And so I feel like the whole world is aware and is concerned with his rise, and that's why again you have the Triwizard Tournament with the foreign schools coming to compete together. So you get this idea between that and the World Cup that the Death Eaters are known worldwide. Voldemort is known worldwide and feared.
Interesting. Okay. Did you have something you wanted to say on that, Richard?
Well, I was going to say the only real other example we know about is Grindelwald, who was active in the 1930s and 1940s, and the impression I think we get from him is that he had a European influence. In fact, there's kind of implication he may have been involved in the Second World War in some way, because we know that Dumbledore defeated him in 1945. And so I think one thing as well is that there's stuff we've been learning on Pottermore about the American Society of Witches and Wizards, that there's not quite so much the pro-pureblood attitude as there is in Britain. There is more of a segregation between wizards and muggles. So it may be that the Voldemort philosophy might not have stretched that far in the same way. But so the impression we get is he does appear to be limited to Britain of what we see. But you can easily imagine that wizards elsewhere, particularly in Europe, which is closest to Britain, they'd be quite scared of him.
Because I'm just curious, like, if Harry Potter is kind of a messianic type character in the end, if then, you know, how far to sort of take that analogy, I guess. But okay, so let's move on. My next question is, so we've just had this traumatic opening. We know that the Death Eaters are on the loose. Does it seem like a strange choice to you for Dumbledore to have this Triwizard Tournament in the middle of all this chaos that we've just seen? Doesn't that seem risky? I don't know. What do you think, Jeremy?
It's the Harry Potter world. It's I mean, we talk about you send your kid to Hogwarts, and there's a fairly good chance he'll come back maimed or wounded or dead at the end of the year. I mean, so there's a good deal of danger just inherent in the world. This tournament is tradition. I forget how many years it says it happens, but it just happens to be this year, and so I wouldn't see them saying no to it. Because again, Dumbledore is going to look at the bright side of things, and he's going to see it as an opportunity to build connections, because he knows Voldemort is he's out there, he's potentially coming back someday, and he knows that the more ties they can have to strengthen the bond of wizards across Europe, at least, will be important going forward. So I think he sees a great opportunity, but I honestly don't think it was necessarily in his power to turn it down at this point.
Doesn't it say that they had canceled it before, though? Or am I not remembering it right?
It was discontinued after like a few centuries earlier because the death toll had gotten so high.
Yeah.
So they're bringing it back for the first time? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So why would the thing that's weird to me about this is it's very clear that this is like very rare event to occur, and yet we don't hear a single peep about it in the previous book. You know, like if this is how they're going to start out their school year, they would be leaving the previous year being really excited about this next school year and how awesome it's going to be because we have a Wizard tournament at Hogwarts. Yeah. But there's kind of like not enough fanfare around it. There's not enough like buzz and excitement either in the previous book and movie or in this one. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, by the way, there's this really crazy tournament that we're doing.
Well, it does seem to be intended to be a surprise to most of the students. I mean, in the book it's made quite clear they've been planning it for a while.
Okay.
And a few students, like Malfoy's heard about it from his father, but it is intended to be a surprise for most of them. And a lot of them would have heard of the Triwizard Tournament because it's because they're from Muggle households or it just happened a very long time ago.
My sister has she doesn't really like Dumbledore very much, my sister. And she thinks that the whole reason that Dumbledore brought it back was that he wanted a reason for Harry and Voldemort to be together and have to face each other, and he knows that that's inevitable, and so he kind of wants to put as many sort of opportunities, I guess, for that to happen, kind of a thing. I don't know how she explained it, but she actually thought this was somehow part of sort of Dumbledore's manipulation. I don't know, is there anything to that at all?
I don't really get that impression from the book. I mean, Dumbledore couldn't have predicted that Moody would be replaced with an imposter, and that imposter will put Harry's name in the goblet. And Dumbledore does act like he hasn't seen this coming, and he's quite troubled by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say I feel like Dumbledore doesn't keep Harry out of danger necessarily, but I don't see him fabricating a large event to put Harry into danger either. I don't see him purposely putting Harry into these situations, but when they come up, I think he would let them happen, because again, he knows the potential that's there, and he knows the destiny. But on a side note, I don't like Dumbledore in this film. I feel like Michael Gambon portrays him as a very angry character, whereas I think my impression from the book is Dumbledore's got maybe some righteous indignation, but not anger, and definitely not anger directed towards the kids. But he just feels very angry throughout this, and it doesn't feel like Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Well, he is a grump, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about that for a second then, since you brought it up? Excuse me. What do you guys think about? What the rest of you guys think about Dumbledore? I agree. There's just something kind of, I don't know, just sort of off-putting. Like he's sort of the mentor. Like you want him to be a little more lovable.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think in the book he was more the lovable mentor who had some moments of real, like, anger out of concern, I guess.
Yeah.
Where in this it just feels like he's this big, mean, scary guy who's killing all the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
mean,
so.
in the book he does get angry a few times, and when he does, like, a very big deal is made out of it because he's hardly ever angry. But he's never actually angry at Harry or at a student. He's angry at Crouch, and when something hasn't gone his way, and but no, he just really isn't very appealing in this film. Like when he yells silence at the student, and then when he's shaking Harry like, "Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?" And I don't know if maybe the idea was to maybe give Dumbledore a bit more. Maybe if Gambon or the directors wanted to give Dumbledore a bit more personality, but it just doesn't work. That's not the Dumbledore we know. He's just not very.
It's not. It feels like a totally different character in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so does it create a lot of plot holes? We've been talking about how Voldemort is a Dark Lord for the whole world, and so if he is a Dark Lord for the whole world, you're having this Triwizard Tournament, which we've never heard about any of these schools before, and we never really hear about any of these schools or worlds again. So why don't these people come and help to defeat later on? You know, like you think that they would kind of be our allies to defeat this evil. You know, like you know, for lack of a better, like we had the Allies, you know, rallying together to defeat Hitler, kind of a thing. Like, where did they all go? Is that a problem for you at all? What do you think, Abby?
Well, it seems like they might be mentioned briefly somewhere down the line. 'Cause doesn't Hermione keep writing to Victor? And like,
you see Fleur again, but just as far as the world.
I agree. There does seem like there should be. I'm having a hard time though because I don't remember the books well enough to really say for sure. Oh yeah, they didn't come and help. They might have. I don't remember. Richard, do you know the answer to that?
I don't think they really do. No, I mean maybe the impression is that it's Britain's problem.
I mean,
For the time
when
being,
Hitler
if
rose to
Voldemort was,
power, we didn't run to their aid either. It took us
no.
until he actually bombed Pearl Harbor until we entered the war.
Well,
And
well,
honestly,
technically Hitler didn't bomb Pearl Harbor.
or the Japan,
Well,
but yeah.
Yeah, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor.
right.
But until we had a real reason to enter the war, until we were personally attacked, we didn't go in. And you have to wonder, if we really knew what was going on with Hitler completely, because I don't think we totally did at that point. I don't think we knew the extent of it. If we really knew, would we have run to their aid? I don't know. We might have.
It's hard to
I
say.
mean, it does make more sense that the countries right around Great Britain would be more anxious to go to their aid because they don't want this spreading to them.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a little weird that we get this glimpse of there's a larger world of wizarding outside Britain,
Yeah.
but then it disappears and we never see it again.
Now, I do feel like with Fleur ends up marrying one of the Weasleys. Is that right?
Yes.
And then, so she's in the later books, and you see Madame Maxine ends up going with Hagrid to the Giants. If I'm remembering right, they're going to
Yeah,
do
that's
recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Forgot about that.
you see individual characters in Parkrov, Death Eater. So you see some of the individual characters from these other countries, but I don't think you ever hear about, oh yeah, the Bulgarians are, they sent a fighting force or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. We do have a comment. Now it's loading. Just one sec. But all right, I'll read that later. So we do have a couple comments here. Lord, from Potterhead. Lord Voldemort is basically Hitler, and Death Eaters are basically Nazis. J.K. Rowling has stated she drew inspiration from World War II and from history. So yeah, we agree on that. And then she also says the score in this film is weak by Harry Potter standards, but it's not weak by general movie standards. And I don't know if I agree with that, but there you go. Okay. Do you think that there's something a little bit gladiator-ish about this tournament? You have these kids doing these dangerous things, fighting dragons, going underneath the water with these mermaids, and saving kids, and Floor's crying and sobbing, and everybody's cheering. Like, is there something kind of gladiator-ish about it at all to you? What about you? What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, there's somewhat. It's games, and it's games in which people can die, and so in that essence, I would say yes. You've got crowds of people waiting to watch, and whether they'll be appalled if somebody dies, but they'll also be entertained if they die. So I think on some level you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is also a different culture where the possibility of people getting hurt isn't quite such a big deal.
That's true. I did make a comment to Jeremy. Yeah, last night I commented that this seems like a tournament that should only happen among adult wizards. Like, I know they have an age limit that's 15 or whatever, but it seems like they should at least be 17, because isn't that like the age of consent in the wizarding world, basically?
Wasn't it 17? I thought it was 17.
Yeah, it was supposed to be for 17-year-olds, which is why Dumbledore had the age line around the goblet.
Oh, it was supposed to be for 17-year-olds? I was thinking it was like 15, the age line.
Yeah, 17. Okay, so what do you think of the Yule Ball? In particular, what does this whole scene do for Hermione, Hermione's character in this series? What do you think, Richard, about the Yule Ball?
Well, I think it was happy you said earlier that the Yule Ball doesn't have that much of a point in the film, because it cuts out the whole bit about Hagrid telling Maxine that he's half giant. That's another thing that cuts out of the film. And it does give a bit of opportunity for character development and showing these characters growing up and thinking about other people romantically. and he gives Hermione her nice little Cinderella moment coming down the stairs. And it does look quite nice. I think it's a little bit jarring that it starts off with the classical dancing, and then suddenly we cut to this rock concert atmosphere. But
Yeah, that band was weird. That does not fit at all to me.
I guess they're supposed to be the weird sisters that are mentioned in the book.
Oh
And
dear.
that's what it does to Hermione's character. I think it was the first hint, I think, that there was going to be a romance between Harry, Hermione, and Ron, because Ron is very obviously jealous of Crumb.
Mm-hmm. I like you described it as a Cinderella moment. I think that's really true, and I think that's the first time people were like, "Wow, she's really pretty."
Yeah. Still not legal.
It felt like in the movie that wasn't as impactful, because Emma Watson is really pretty. She just is. And so you can make her hair look messy, but she's still Emma Watson, and she's still really pretty.
Yeah.
And so in the movie, I didn't think it had as much impact as it did in the book, where you're kind of seeing things more through Harry's lens, and he's not that perceptive, if we're being totally honest.
I mean, in the book, Harry doesn't recognize her at first, does he? He sees Crumb coming in, he's like, "Oh, I don't know that girl he's with."
In the movie, it's just like her in a dress with her hair up. But in the book, it's like, whoa, she's a girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Whoa, it's a girl. Yeah, I think you really see the director. We haven't really talked about Mike Newell as a director. You see his background here in these scenes because he has a romantic comedy kind of really good background in Four Weddings and Funeral and things like that. And I enjoy it. I guess I like those kind of movies. I think it has a little bit of a almost like a high school movie, like She's All That or something like that to it. You know, it's like the big moment at the prom. You know, I think like the sort of feel, and I like it. I think it's fun, and I think that it's the first time now it's an important moment for Hermione because she's sort of symbolic of the whole group becoming teenagers versus being children. It's sort of coming out type of situation for I think all of the leads in a way.
That's true.
Yeah.
I thought the portrayal of Ron and Harry being horrible dates was also really spot on. Like
Yeah,
they were
totally funny.
I wanted to smack the both of them through the entire movie. They were just obnoxious.
Yeah, they really were. Okay, so Ron is jealous of Harry in this. Is this handled well in your mind? Does it make sense given his character, and is it resolved effectively? What do you think, Jeremy?
I think it makes sense. You know, everybody wanted to get their name in the Goblet of Fire, and Harry's name comes out, and of course your first assumption is Harry is this special kid. You know, he's had privileges that you never did, and even though he's not from this world, he's already above you in some ways because you don't have money. And somehow your best friend got his name in this cup, and you were just upset as heck about it. So yeah, I can definitely see that driving a wedge between them initially. And honestly, I can't remember how they ended up resolving that wedge in the movie, but I remember in the book feeling satisfied.
The reason why you can't remember it is because it's so lame. It's just they're just friends. They just like hug and they're like everything's okay. I think they just pick it up and they drop it, and I don't know. So
there are some kind of hints that I mean, obviously they're quite antagonistic for a few chapters, and I think there are some hints that that Ron's having second thoughts about it. I mean, in the scene where Harry's been talking to Sirius, he comes downstairs because he hadn't seen Harry come up, which kind of implies that he was concerned about Harry, and it's only when Harry starts getting quite angry at him that he gets all antagonistic again.
That's fair. Okay. Our commenter Potter, she does say it's the Ministry of Magic who organizes the Triwizard Tournament, not Dumbledore. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's true. Okay, so next is here we go. Yeah, I just think it's just I think there's more interesting things they could have done with that dynamic and that friendship than what they did with it, I guess, I feel. But,
I agree. I think it's developmentally appropriate, like the whole situation with Ron being jealous of Harry all the time and
that's
being
interesting.
super in love with Hermione, but being unwilling to really acknowledge that in any real way. It makes sense for kids this age, and they're kind of in this awkward place between childhood and adulthood, and they're like just starting to really be part of this world of romance and these adult things, and it makes sense that Ron wouldn't handle that very well.
I do like when Hermione's like, and next time ask me first and not as a last resort. That's a good rom-com kind of moment, I feel, in it. So
I do want to say, talking about the women in the film, I don't feel like women were treated very well in the film at all.
That's a good point.
You look at like Fleur de la Cour, she is a Triwizard champion. She is supposed to be just a really great witch, and she just looks like this crying little girl throughout the tournament and throughout the movie. And I don't feel like you have any example of a woman in the film who is anything but eye candy or the damsel in distress. I mean, Hermione, of course, you know, she's there to explain things to the boys, but that's about as strong a thing any female does, unless somebody has something else out there.
Does it even pass the Bechdel test? I don't know that.
Good question.
I'm not sure it does actually. No.
I don't think it does.
I have to think about it. Yeah.
No, because I mean, unless the twins say something, but I don't think they do.
I don't think they talk about anything other than boys to each other.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, they said hi, Harry.
No, they just both go, hi, Harry, and then talk to the boys at the ball. I don't think they really talk to each other. No.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of, but you're right. It isn't. It is kind of lame in that regard.
Yeah.
It's true.
But I'm just watching it, and it just bugged me about the third time you see Fleur have to be rescued. I think in the maze she was. Harry had to send up the sparks for her, but then it just dawned like we've never seen her do anything that showed that she was competent in the whole film, and
that's true.
She was champion.
I feel the foreign characters don't really get much to do in general in the film. I mean, Maxime and Karkaroff and Fleur and Crone, they don't really get that much screen time, or we don't see them doing very much in general.
That's true.
Yeah. That is true. I mean, everything could have used more time, more fleshing out in this movie for sure.
Even the entrance of the Beauxbatons, the girls from that school, they walk into the hall and...
Oh, I forgot to talk about that.
Their magic display is leaning over and having butterflies come out. Like, it's,
it's pretty pathetic.
I don't remember what it was in the book, but it was a heck of a lot more impressive than that.
Yeah.
No, there isn't really anything in the book. And Beauxbatons isn't an all-girls school in the book. There are definitely boys who go there.
Oh, interesting.
The carriage just arrives, and then this boy gets out and lets Madame Maxime come out. And they just walk into the hall. There's no big impressive display except when the carriage and the ship arrive.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that whole introduction. I'm glad you reminded me of that. That when they all walking in, it's a little, I don't know, not my favorite.
If this were a musical, it would have been totally appropriate.
Yeah, you probably are getting some of that rom-com background from Mike Newell in sort of that feel. But yeah, I agree. It's not great. Okay. Oh, we got some more comments. This is great. So we have another commenter. Just one sec here. Pull it up. Norvell's Nightmares, he's called, and he says, I wouldn't classify it as the strongest showcase for Hermione. I feel like the fifth film made up for the iffy women treatment. So still not the worst treatment of women. Sure, it's not. They're certainly worse. And And then he says, basically, Ron's entire character in the film is jealous guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, because even with Hermione, he's jealous.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's keep going. We talked about Dumbledore being angry. So what do you think of Mad Eye Moody? Brendan Gleeson, he's a really good actor, I think. What do you think of his performance? And do you buy that he could get away with this whole polyjuice thing this time? What do you think, Abby?
I really liked Mad Eye Moody. I thought his portrayal was really well done. The whole polyjuice potion thing, I mean, we accept a lot from this wizarding world, and I think I can accept that also. But yeah, like when I read the book, as I was reading it, I remember thinking, how are they gonna portray this guy? Like, how are they gonna pull that off with the crazy eye and everything? And I think the way they did it worked really nicely. And
I mean, it's a pretty dark thing, really, when you think about it. He's been in prison all this time, and he's been, like, pretty...
Yeah, it really is. The poor guy's been through a lot. And I think the twist was really interesting. I mean, in the book, oh my goodness, that was such a huge revelation at the end when we find out Mad Eye Moody is not Mad Eye Moody. I didn't feel like the revelation was very impactful in the movie, partly because, well, I read the book first, so I already knew, but also because they show you. I mean, they give you a lot of reason to believe that it's not Mad Eye Moody, and so that's actually kind of, I think that's kind of lame.
Mm-hmm. They don't pull up that surprise.
Like portrayed was really good.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Richard, about Moody?
Well, I do agree. He's portrayed very well by Brendan Gleeson. He has this tough aura character, and he just kind of sometimes the Crouch Junior behind the mask, he kind of breaks character a little bit sometimes. Like when he's looking at Harry and when he's looking at his father, he does that tongue flick that he does when he's in his normal form. And and I do think it was a big shock in the book, and I do feel like the having all these hints kind of works in the film because you need to compact it more. Like having these hints, seeing him drinking the potion, and these references to Crouch Junior beforehand. I feel while most of the story is quite choppy, as I said, the whole mystery element feels more cohesive and handled pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's terrible. I'm in the middle, I guess, on that one. And I really like Brendan Gleeson. I think he's a great actor. I really think he does a good job. He's a lot of fun. And what do you think of Doctor Who makes an appearance here? David Tennant? Do you think, is he too snivelly? Is he too, like, I don't know, over the top? Or do you like him?
He's very over the top. I do quite like him because that's not the kind of performance you normally see from David Tennant. I mean, I don't think I think it came out in late 2005, which was actually just before his first TV appearance as a Doctor, and he wasn't that well known at that point.
Okay.
But it is very different from these normal charismatic characters he plays. As is like when he plays the villain in Jessica Jones more recently. It is quite fun to see him in this quite rabid evil state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, What were you going to say, Jeremy?
I hate the tongue flick. I wish they'd left it out. I get that they wanted to drop that hint with Moody, but I don't know. I just don't feel like it was necessary, and I don't like it.
Okay. Makes sense.
I think of tics that people can have, that's one I've never, ever, ever seen in my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, if they're going to give him a tick or some kind of thing to make him identifiable, it shouldn't be that. Like, that's just a weird thing to do. Nobody does that.
So, yeah, what Norville's Nightmares, he asks, what is the David Tennant tongue thing? He's asking, I I don't know. I can't recreate it. I'm not as talented.
It's creepy. It's just wrong.
Kind of creepy. Okay, and he also says, I like Mad Eye's line, she's just as much a fairy princess as I am.
Yeah.
So there you go. That was pretty funny. And he also says that that supposedly Mike Newell did get some Bollywood influence in this one. Make of that what you will. And I guess I could see in that introduction there's a little bit of a Bollywood feel, but it just feels so out of place. Yeah. Okay. I just have one more question because we do have to kind of wrap this up early this time. It's just, did anything stand out to you about the cinematography, the production design, the special effects kind of thing? What about you, Jeremy? You want to start?
Yeah, I felt like on the whole the special effects were great. I really enjoyed. I wasn't really off-put by anything visually other than the tongue flick, which isn't really a special effect. I felt like the Priori Incantatum, when their wands, Voldemort and Harry's wands met in the graveyard, I felt like that was done pretty well. I was bothered, the first time I saw that, and you see kind of this foam spewing out of the wand spray. It was just weird, but now I've kind of accepted it since we've seen further movies with it in it. But I thought that scene was really well done.
What about you, Richard? Anything stand out to you?
Yeah, to be honest, not that much really stands out compared to the Columbus films and Prisoner of Azkaban, which have a very own distinctive style. I mean, the special effects look okay. Like the dragon looks pretty good, and the scenery under the lake, and the maze looks very good. It's a very eerie atmosphere, and as is in the graveyard. The atmosphere there is really good. I don't really like the design of the Death Eater's robes. They're supposed to look like the Ku Klux Klan with these pointy headpieces. But I'm quite glad that they get redesigned in the film.
Oh yeah.
In later films.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that was weird.
Yeah.
Clan robes.
Yeah, they just don't look very intimidating.
Yeah, that was strange. Yeah, I mean, I think the maze is the best part as far as production design and visuals. It really, you get there's a real sense of fear and panic and all of that. I for some reason, whenever Harry faces off against Voldemort, I don't know, I always feel like there's a certain degree of sort of peace about it in a weird way. I can't explain it. But like, I don't know, yeah, when their wands meet, it just, I don't know, I just feel a certain degree of awe about it, I guess is maybe the best word to describe it. That's how I feel.
Yeah, there's sort of this sense that everything else falls away and this is all that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's clarity. That's a good way to describe it, for sure. So, did you have anything that stood out to you, Abby?
No, I'm kind of with Jeremy. I feel like it's generally pretty good looking movie. I mean, this one had a lot of heavy effects. I mean, doing these challenges called for a ton of heavy visual effects, and I think they were handled pretty well on the whole. Yeah. There are some decisions that I don't think were great, but for the most part, I think it's a visually appealing film.
Yeah, I think so. Norville's Nightmares says, I actually, for some reason, find the Priori Incantatum thing cheesy, to be honest. I think it's mainly when Cedric is standing there, like, take my body back, will you? He finds that cheesy. Oh, we should talk about Cedric and that death. And is there something to be admired about the fact that J.K. was willing to actually kill a character, or does it get negated by the fact that it's a side character? It's still killing a character in a children's series. I don't know. What do you think, Jeremy?
I think it works. I'm not a fan of killing characters just for the sake of killing them. I think it shows just how really Voldemort. It doesn't matter who it was. It wasn't kill that person. It's kill the spare. That person isn't supposed to be here. Just kill him. Get him out of the way. It just shows you the how little he values life. That it just doesn't matter who it was. Just kill him and let's move on with what's going on. Cedric was built up throughout the book, as a Triwizard champion. So he became important, I guess. So I don't have a problem with it. I think if it was a major character, you kind of lose. It's like, oh well, of course Voldemort killed him because it was this person. But it's almost better to see him kill, his the groundskeeper at his father's, estate, and Cedric, who just happened to be there along with Harry. It just shows that he has no value for any life, and he's not looking for targets. He'll kill anybody.
Well, and hey, they were killed Edward Cullen long before. Before we knew what we were getting.
Worse than death.
Yeah, I think it works for me. I think it's emotional. I think it gives a sense of gravitas to the story and kind of moving on in the future, that like this is serious stuff we're dealing with. People could die.
Yeah.
So for me, it works.
Yeah, I think in both the film and the book, we've seen enough of Cedric and what a noble and decent person he is to care when he dies. And I think the scene where Harry comes back with Cedric's body is handled really well. Just when you see Amos Diggory comes down and starts crying over Cedric's body, there's just some real raw grief there. I find that one of the most emotional moments of the entire series.
Yeah, and like his father, that is sad.
Yeah.
That is really
You
sad.
really believe he's just lost his son.
Yeah, that's true. It's very true. Okay, so that is my last question. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to bring up about the film?
Abby wants to talk about Moaning Myrtle.
Oh yeah, there's so many things I forgot about this because I watched it in Spain, and so now it's been like it was a couple of weeks. You're right. Let's talk about Moaning Myrtle.
She's the worst. She's the worst. That's all I have to say about that. She's not even the worst in the book, but the movie Moaning Myrtle is the worst.
She's super creepy. Like, not in a good ghost creepy way.
Weeping, whining, weirdo Myrtle.
And like a little bit pervy too. Like the way she's like looking at him, like in the.
Well, she is stuck as a teenager forever.
Yeah,
that's true. She's just horrible on every single level.
It took Cedric much longer to figure that out. Almost all the bubbles were gone.
I mean, that is quite the bath they've got there at Hogwarts.
Yeah. Only
it's
for the
kind of a wasteful way to take a bath, unless you're taking a bath with like 6 people, which is its own
like a
little
hot tub.
Yeah, pretty much.
We never actually see bathrooms that the normal students use. I mean, that's the prefect's bathroom. So I don't think we ever actually see how normal students take a bath.
Yeah, good point.
True.
That's true.
That's
Maybe
true. We see
spell.
like a regular restroom where they use the toilet, but we don't see like the real bathroom where they take a shower.
Do they have like a cleaning spell, maybe? Cleans them?
That would be so nice. You'd never have to take a shower again.
Yeah, she's so like Harry, ooh, you know. Like, we have a comment. Norville's Nightmares. He says the Ku Klux Klan look kind of bugged me as well, and I think now living in a state where that's still a thing hidden around, it's more disturbing because he's from Alabama. So there you go.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was probably a mistake. But yeah. Anybody have anything else to say about Moaning Myrtle?
Not about Moaning Myrtle. I was going to comment about the when we were talking about the Triwizard tasks earlier, don't you think they're a bit lacking for the spectators? At least the second and third ones.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one you have this dragon which gets free and could kill everybody in the audience and nobody does a thing about it. And then the second task you just stare at a lake for an hour.
Yeah, good
And the third task you
point.
stare at the outside of the maze for God knows how long.
Good point. I hadn't even thought of that. You're absolutely right.
That's funny. They need like a big screen that shows what's happening.
Yeah, they need like underwater, photography or something.
The
That
underwater
is so
drone.
true. I never thought about that, but yeah, where's the
Yeah.
fun in that?
But if they could see what was going on in the maze, then they would have seen that Crumb was taken with the Imperious Curse and was attacking the other people. Not that you can tell he's under the Imperious Curse. They made it so you could tell in the movie. But anyway.
Yeah. Let's see. We have a comment loading here. Yeah, that's really, really true. And I don't know. A lot of the intrigue as far as the tasks kind of happen outside of the actual tournament itself, as far as figuring out how to open the egg and things like that. Like, none of the crowd sees that.
Yeah.
That's true. So, Normal's Nightmare says, I'm actually not a big fan of any of the ghosts, except for the Grey Lady. I even hate Peeves. I'm sorry, but I find him more annoying than funny. So, this is a controversial comment, I guess.
Well, he's not in the film then. Anyway.
They really serve no purpose. I mean, they're really just there.
Yeah. Moaning Myrtle's the only one that I guess serves a purpose, but she's very annoying. I agree.
In the later
I agree.
books, they serve a purpose when they're looking for the Horcruxes.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, and there is this talk between where Harry has this talk with Nearly Headless Nick and the Order of the Phoenix about death and becoming a ghost.
All
Yeah,
right,
they're-
they're
yeah,
still.
that's only in the book, not the film.
Yeah.
Did they ever say what makes somebody become a ghost and why other spirits don't become a ghost?
Well, basically, firstly, only wizards can become ghosts, and basically, it's if you're really afraid of death or you have a particular reason for remaining on Earth.
Okay. We did have one more comment from Potterhead. She says, I agree on Dumbledore in this film. I feel it was Mike Newell's direction because Dumbledore doesn't act like this in any of the other films. So I'm really actually looking forward to these next group of films because I think that, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe I'll be disappointed by them too, but I'm really hoping that sort of teenage Potter intrigues me a little bit more. Maybe I can relate to it a little bit more. I remember enjoying them so much, except for the 7-part one. So yeah, well, hopefully I'll like it a little bit better than I've liked most of these other ones. Not that I've hated them. I just been a little disappointed. So.
Well, and I'll say I'm really annoyed by the splitting into two movies, but I feel like the length of the books 4 through 7, they all could have been split into two movies, and then you could have gotten the story out.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I think, I still don't think it worked. We'll talk about that come 7-part 1. I don't think it worked, but I see your point too. It's a tough balance.
I think I'd rather have them just be like 3-hour movies than
Yeah,
have them split. But.
I'm kind of with you there.
Or have the director change the story enough that it actually fits and is a legitimate fleshed out story in the 2.5 hours or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, because the first two I thought were kind of boring, so I wouldn't want. I mean, those two could have been, I think, half an hour shorter, no problem. Whereas this one could have been easy a half an hour longer. I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And even Azkaban, I think, could have been a little longer. I wouldn't have complained.
Yeah,
So-
I remember with that one being in the theater and they cut to the end scene and I'm like, that's it. You know.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about about 7 Part 1 when we watched that one, but it's not my favorite. I don't really like it very much, but maybe I'll love it. Who knows? This is the rewatch has been weird, so we'll see how it goes. So we will get together next month and talk about Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, right? Is the next one?
Yep.
Yeah.
That one should be fun. I look forward to that. Will be interesting at least. And so if you, where can people find you if you want to start, Abby and then Jeremy and Richard?
You can find me on Twitter at Abby_kid. I think my Twitter handle is the same. And we have a blog at jeremyandabbyadopt.wordpress.com.
Great.
And you can find me on Twitter, Jeremy_kid.
My Twitter is PNERichard, and my blog is velociraptor256 at .wordpress.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to next month. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah,
Great,
we will.
thanks.